All right, guys, welcome back to video 3 in our biblical marriage series. All right, guys, it is Biblical Marriage Month. That is what we are celebrating in our home. We are not listening to the world and doing what they are asking us to do, which is to celebrate something that's yucky and not good. So we are celebrating Biblical Marriage Month. And if you have not already checked out the other videos, I already shared with you guys what we're doing in our home with teens and courting or dating with intention, dating with a purpose. I shared with you guys last week the role of a husband in a marriage, so important and not taught at all. And today we're going to talk about the role of the wives. Again, not being taught, and actually it's being taught backwards. It's being taught wrong, and I don't like that at all. But we are going to talk about what does the Bible say in the role of a wife. All right, guys, so let's jump right in. God created men and women. We learned that at the very beginning of Genesis. In Genesis 1:27-28 says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them. And God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.'" So often in society, we are taught that men are supposed to rule over their wives, that they are supposed to dominate them, and the wives are supposed to just be these weak little things that are like, "Okay, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir," like a servant. And that is not at all what the Bible teaches. And that incorrect teaching is what also fuels this alphabet agenda movement that we see in our society, because they say, "Hey, women, you don't need to be this way. You need to rise up and take your place, and it's not to be dominated by men." But that's not even what the Bible teaches, which is what is so ridiculous about their entire agenda. So if you listen to that verse, it does not say that a wife is a partner to rule over her husband, or that she is to be ruled over by her husband. It says God created distinctions, and there's men and there's women, and they each have their own role. And culture that we live in today is trying to erase that. Just look at the things that are going on with just the word gender alone. They completely misinterpret the fact that God has blessed each gender with their own things. God blessed your gender, and we are to submit to God, and we are to fill the earth. And God didn't say that man should exercise dominion over the other, or that even women should do that over their men. Rather, that we are to be partners together in a marriage. And that is so often the reason why marriages fail. So I hope that if your marriage is struggling, maybe this will help you, because it doesn't need to be that way. So let's look at this. Women we are created to be a helper. The helper in the marriage is not a diminishing role. It is not something that is squashing anything that we want to do in life. God created a wife to help the husband, because the husband can't do it all. He needs help. The helper is a serious role. In the Trinity, we see how the Holy Spirit is considered the helper. It's still a very serious role with very serious duties and tasks at hand. And it's not the servant while the other is like the slave driver, right? We learned last week that men have to submit to God. And in order for men to submit to God, they need women to help them do that. The women is the helper. The woman is the helper. And helper, the word helper in Hebrew is ezer. And it means provides assistance, provides the needed assistance and helps. Just a little side note, it's used 21 times in the Old Testament. 16 of those are referring to God. Just looking at Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my helper. It's not that we live only for our husband's needs and servant, and it's not that helping him is our only purpose in life, but God did fill us, women, with gifts and talents so that we can use those abilities to help contribute to our families, help our husbands be successful, help our families be successful. And if you've ever met a man, you know it is difficult for a man to receive help from a woman. And if you've met a woman, you know it is difficult for a woman often to receive help from a man. Why? Why do you think that is? It is because we're different and we see things differently, and that is on purpose. The areas that we often need help with are the areas of our differences, okay? And if you ever have differences with your spouse and you think about that, that's probably where it is. It's probably with the areas that you guys are different, and that's why you're having this issue, and that's why you guys can work together to solve those differences. Instead, often we end up arguing because we don't want to accept the help that we have right there beside us. We rather want to prove that we don't need that help at all. I mean, has anybody else been there besides me? I'm just saying. Differences are meant to complement each other. It's true. In the beginning of a relationship, often you'll hear the quote like, opposites attract. We're so different, but we love each other so much. And it's true. But later, when the marriage gets going, you'll see that some of those opposite things can cause problems. Why? Because we need to learn that these differences are meant to complement each other, not to divide each other. Often we try to take it and we don't actually want to see or seek the help that we need from one another, and we do need that help. There are things that men are very good at, and there are things that women are very good at, and when we work together, we can both be successful as people. So the next one is the wife. Have you ever heard the term or the quote that the man is the head, but the woman is the neck and can turn the head any way she wants? Okay, that is actually not biblical, and it implies that the woman is actually in control, and that for appearance's sake the man is in control, but in actuality the woman is control. And it puts women in a position where they start to think of themselves as being the one in charge, the one making all the decisions, and that again takes you out of your role that God gave you and starts to cause problems in your marriage. But let me tell you what the Bible says. The Bible actually says that the wife is the crown of the husband. I love this so much, and when I read this, it was like mind-blowing beauty for me. Okay, it says in Proverbs 12:4, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband. The wife is the crown of her husband, but she who causes shame is like rottenness in his bones. Wow. So let me unpack this a little bit. The Bible gives the role of a crown. The Bible elevates women, elevates wives to a place of glory and honor and recognition. Wow. Wives, you are, think about it. Who wears a crown? Who wears a crown? And what do we think about crowns? We think of them as, we don't wear them just every day. Like, I'm not wearing one right now. Why? Because they're considered precious and beautiful, and they're considered to be something that is reserved for maybe special occasions or people of honor or recognition. They're not considered like just your everyday thing, right? God is so wise in his word when he puts all this in here, because, we need to realize the role that God has for women is not diminishing at all. And the society will tell you that is the way it is. And it is so false. Wives are the crown of the husband. It says, wives, do not stoop down to what culture's low expectation or low point of view is for you. That's society. That's the culture. That's the agenda telling you that you are needing to rise up because you're not in control. But the Bible elevates women. The wording here is strong. It implies that she is the crown, okay? So let's go back to that verse. It says, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband. The word excellent here, if you look it up in Hebrew, means hayil. I probably butchered that and I'm sorry, which means valor, okay? Valor, which is like wonderful, right? But it also says, but she who causes shame is like rottenness in his bones. When you think of a rotting bone, it's like a cancer. It's a problem. And wives, if you are making fun of your husbands, I talked about this in the last video, if you are comparing him to other men, disrespecting him publicly, belittling him in front of the children or others, shaming him, lecturing him, nagging him, controlling him, manipulating him with tears. I could keep going. I'm sure at some point we have all done these things, and because we're human. But when we do those things, it is like a cancer, like a rottenness in his bones. And we are literally tearing apart our marriages when we do that. We are teaming up with Satan and destroying our marriages. In the Bible, women are considered very influential. You can find several instances where women are influential. Eve influenced Adam, not in a good way, but in a negative way, but she was influential to him. Abigail influenced David in a good way to help him. He was ready to kill the whole family, and she ran out and said, whoa, my husband made a mistake. Let's not do this. And we're influential, and we need to be careful and use that ability carefully and not to diminish and manipulate our spouses, but to raise them up to their God-given positions. If the husband is in the wrong, we can guide him, not by doing all of these awful things, but by guiding him in a biblical manner. Now, I know that not every husband is maybe at the same level or even a believer at all when it comes to faith and Christianity, and that's okay, because the Bible addresses that too. And I am so thankful for that, because when my husband and I got saved, it was a couple years apart, like 3, I think, years apart between the two of us. And there was a time period when I was just like, what do I do? Because I had gotten saved and he had not, and it was causing some strife in our marriage, and I didn't know how to be a woman of Christ, a godly woman in a marriage when my husband didn't want to follow Christ. And if we look at 1 Peter 3:1, it says it's addressing the unbelieving husband. It says, wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husband, that even if some do not obey the word, that without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives. It's true. My husband watched the way I behaved, watched the way I responded to him, the things that I did, and over time came to know the Lord as well, because he was able to see the change within myself. So we need to be careful about that. We don't need to just listen to what the world is going to tell us about all of these things. Okay, so the primary need of a man is to be honored and respected. Isn't that what all men want? They want to be honored and respected. And society, again, is diminishing that, belittling men into turning them to be passive and feminine. And that is not the way that they were created. They were created to be honored and respected. We can respect our men without even using words. There's little things, supporting him in decisions he makes. I heard once at a sermon, they were doing a marriage retreat sermon at our church years ago, and I never forget this, but she said, there was like a man was giving the sermon, but he had a couple up there as like his examples, right? And the wife was saying, well, what about when I know that my husband is making a bad choice? I know that he's making a choice for our family, but I know it's a bad choice. What do I do? And if I've already told him and he doesn't want to listen, and she's offered that biblical help, I'll never forget. I will never forget. But the little phrase was that the pastor said was, you need to turn it over to God, because God is going to be, he has to answer to God ultimately for his actions, not only for his actions on himself, but how he guided and led his family through life. And he said, you just need to duck sometimes and let God clobber him. You need to, so it's a funny thing, right? But you need to pray and ask God to help him see. And sometimes, wives, we get in the way of God being able to intervene and help our families because we're always trying to correct the places where we see our husbands failing. And I'll never forget, they said, you just need to duck and get out of the way and let God take over and clobber your husband. And it may take that. It may take that, him learning that lesson before he realizes the mistake. And that's okay, because God will walk with you through that error. But wives, we don't need to just start taking over, even if we see things like that foresight. We can offer that biblical advice, but when our husbands don't want to take it and they find the error of their mistakes, then they learn from that and then they can do better next time. So the primary need of a man is honor and respect. The primary need of a woman is security and love. We have to learn to be godly wives and godly women. We just do. And no, that doesn't mean that we need to wait around for our husbands to order us around, but that means that we need to be godly wives and women. There's so many references in the Bible to this of how we can do this. And I remember deliberately praying for God to show me how to be a good wife or how to be a good mom. And these were literally things, because the Bible tells us if we ask for wisdom, we will receive it. And that was what I did. Wives need to submit to our husbands. We do. And that doesn't mean like bowing down when he enters the room, which is what culture basically tells us. It says that we shouldn't honor submission because, it's this belittling thing, but it's not true. As we just saw, the Bible has women as a crown, but we can't be that beautiful crown if we're too busy telling everybody what to do, right? Modern culture doesn't honor submission. Humans are rebellious by nature after the fall. And it sounds like it's frightening to be submissive or belittling, and it's just not true, because the Bible doesn't teach us to submit to men, but to our husbands. This is specifically intended for our family unit. There has to be a leader in a home. There has to be someone who is in charge, and God has decided that that is the man. And I appreciate that, because that ultimately means that I am there to help him, and that he has that responsibility to make those decisions. I appreciate that, because he is able to do that. Ephesians 5:22-24 says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church. He is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husband in everything. Just as the church is subject to Christ. Okay, so think about that. The church, Christ gives us rules or guidelines that we are to follow as a church, and we follow them. It doesn't mean that God is beating us down with a stick, or that we're bowing down, doing all these crazy things, right? And that's what it says. So let the wives be to their own husbands, okay? It is a place of honor. Submission from the Greek is from the Greek word hypotasso, which means to arrange under. This was actually often used as a military term. And it means to place yourself under the leader. Like I was just talking about the leader. And it means to put yourself kind of in line, like you line up, just like you would with your children. You would say like the oldest and then the next and the next. And you would say like, okay, well, if the oldest kid tells the little ones that this is what they need to do, then we need to do that because they're like the older ones. They have more wisdom, the more life experience, more whatever. And that's their role, right? Just like it is with husbands. There has to be a leader. And if you look at that, anything that doesn't have a leader would be something like, let me phrase it a little differently. Anything without a head, okay? Because the man is the head of the household, right? So anything without a head is not alive, it's dead. And anything that has two heads is considered a monster, okay? So if you just take that little tip or analogy and think about that, if it doesn't have a head, if it doesn't have a leader, it's dead. And if it has two leaders, then there's nobody who's going to make a decision. What if they both want two different things? There has to be somebody who can make that decision. A voluntary attitude of cooperating and putting trust in an authority figure. That is what submission is. Putting our trust in an authority figure. Not something a husband can demand. It is given voluntarily. It is given voluntarily. Jesus submits to God. Same with, we talked about the Holy Spirit. It's not to belittle us, but to imitate him. So everything in the Bible is intended for that purpose, to teach us more about God. And that is what this is as well. No, it doesn't say that it's the smarter person or the person with more education or the person who's older. It is the husband, regardless. It is the husband. God sets these rules not to limit, not to control us, but to empower men and women. We both have different skills that we are good at, and honoring those skills and taking them into your hands is where you're going to grow. Husbands carry a greater responsibility before God, and God judges them more severely. I believe that. I believe that he does. Truth stands in contrast, though, with what the culture says. Culture is going to tell us something else. The agenda, society, all of that is going to tell us something else. But we are called as Christians to do what is right, not what's easy. And often that means going against the grain, which is the right thing to do. Okay, the last thing is my absolute favorite part of being a wife, and it is that we are the builders of the home. It says a wise woman builds her house, not just her career. Yes, this is the ideal situation. No, it doesn't happen all the time. Some wives, for various circumstances, have to go to work as well. That's different. But in a situation where a wife and a husband are married and happy, and the husband is working, the wife is intended to build the home. That's the way it was originally created. Titus 2:4-5 says, then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to teach them to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. This is intended to be able to be something so that future generations can go the same way and we can learn from each other, not so that we can belittle each other or bring each other down or say that women are born just to have babies. That's not true. The Bible will tell us that we are to love our husbands, but culture will tell us that we are not to have a husband, or we're to take over our husband or rule over him. The Bible will tell us that we're to love our children, but culture will tell us that, children are a hindrance to your career. You shouldn't have children. They're just going to cost money. You should just abort them. The Bible teaches about self-control, whereas culture is going to teach us, do whatever you want. You've heard that. Live your best life. You've heard that. The Bible teaches us about being pure and building our homes, and culture tells us, get out of that bondage. Just do whatever you want sexually or whatever. And it's not true. Again, we are called to do what's right, not what is easy. And we are called to build our homes and to raise godly families. That's where wives come in. And my whole channel is about raising up women to be good Christian wives in the homemaking field, because we don't need to be, somebody has to raise the children, and somebody has to raise up that next generation. And I want it to be good Christian women who can teach them good things, because if we start to have society, which we already do, where children are being raised by people who aren't Christians and people who aren't family, and people, they're just being indoctrinated, we start to have a diminishing society. We can see it in today's world, and we have a very important part in that. We're not intended to seek fame and fortune and all of these things through other means. We're intended to raise our homes, our families, and to guide our families and to make a beautiful home for our families. And our husbands have the role of being the overseer kind of over that, and being the head of the household and working and all of these other things that we talked about in the last video. So women, I want you to encourage your man. I want you to love on him so that he doesn't have to go find a work wife. I hear that term too many times, and I hear it in like a way that it's cutesy or it's fun. And I feel like it is so terrible, because it is literally Satan teaming up with these women and these men and destroying families, and people don't see it that way, but that is so true. So don't be a work wife. Don't let your husband have that or whatever. Just raise your family. Stay in your role, your God-given role. You have plenty of work to do within your own role. I promise you that we don't need to go seeking out others. And it's not demeaning or belittling. There are so many things we can do as women and grow. The Bible does not push down women. It builds them up. And society is going to lie to you and tell you otherwise, because I was raised like that too. And it's false. When you look in the Bible, it's false. All right, guys, thank you for joining me for week 3 of Biblical Marriage Month. I am so excited. I may make this an annual thing because it's really going well and I'm really enjoying it. Next week, I'm going to share with you guys the 15 best tips and things that we have learned in our own marriage. My husband and I have been married 15 years, so I thought 15 would be a good number to start with, and just things that we've learned over the years. So stay tuned for that as well. And if you missed the husband's video, go check that one out as well, or the one on teen dating or courting, dating with a purpose, all of that as well. They are in the playlist listed titled Biblical Marriage Month.